Rangatira mā, e kui mā, e koro mā, e whiwhi nei. Tēnei atu mihi mahana ki a koutou. Kia ora tātou katoa. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, warm greetings to you all. I'd like to specifically acknowledge this evening's guest of honour, Dr. Jane Goodall. Tēnā koe, ngā I whakarongo, ki te tangi a te tae. Hei tauira ngā tātou katoa. Greetings. You have heard the lament of the natural world. You are an example for us all. One of the truly great privileges of my role is the opportunity, on occasion, to actually meet someone who's been a hero of mine since my childhood. And Jane Goodall is one of those people. Nearly 2 years ago, I had the great pleasure of speaking at the launch of the Jane Goodall Institute in New Zealand. And I'm absolutely delighted that we're able this evening to host the Institute's reception and presentation of the inaugural Jane Goodall Trailblazer Awards. The impact of Dr. Goodall's work is undeniable. As a scientist, her discoveries altered our view of chimpanzee behaviour. As a conservationist, she has encouraged us to change the way we think about and interact with nature. Her move from observation of the species to conservation of species has been a source of inspiration and fascination for many. I freely admit to being one of them. The mission of the Jane Goodall Institute is to create a better world for people, for animals, and for our shared environment. Needless to say, that's a pretty challenging task. Humans have, on the whole, been careless, indeed reckless, of the welfare of other creatures who share this planet. The recent UN report on biodiversity put the number of species currently facing extinction at 1 million. Alongside that loss is the declining health of the ecosystems that all life depends on. A world without other species will likely lead to a world without us. It's a sobering thought, but just as we've created these problems, we can work to solve them. Now tonight is about honouring Jane Goodall. It's also about personal action. What choices can we make for a healthy planet? We all have a role to play, and it's vital that we do so. As Dr. Goodall has often said, the greatest danger to our future is apathy. Alongside that is assumption. We cannot assume that someone else will do it. There's no cavalry riding to the rescue. There's only us. So thank you all for being here tonight. It now gives me the greatest of pleasures to welcome our guest of honour, Dr. Jane Goodall.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, and good evening to everybody. I wish I was taller. I can't see you at the back, but if I had a chair, I'd jump onto it. But anyway, I'm sorry. So we started this evening with the language of the people who traditionally own this country. And I'm going to start with the language of the ancestor of our own species by greeting you with that simply is chimpanzee for this is me, this is Jane. So I want to thank Melanie and Neil, who are the CEO and the chair of the Jane Goodall Institute in New Zealand. There are 34 Jane Goodall Institutes now around the world. And I want to thank, I have no idea where you are, but there are 7 board members somewhere here in this room, but I can't see you. And there are also 3 ambassadors. There's Catherine, and there's Phil Bishop. Phil Bishop, I call him the Frogman. Some of you may know him. And he's the one who first got me to New Zealand and actually introduced JGI and our Roots and Shoots program for young people. And then the latest ambassador is Gino from Weta, one of my heroes, and he's our latest ambassador. So this is how the Institute does its work around the world, by the volunteers and the staff and the ambassadors and the friends of the Jane Goodall Institute. But the special thanks I always like to start off with is to my mother, because it was she who supported a little girl loving animals. It was she who was the only one who didn't laugh at that child at 10 years old who read Tarzan of the Apes, fell in love with that glorious Lord of the Jungle, and was really upset because he married the wrong Jane. So this was when my dream began. I will go to Africa, live with wild animals, and write books about them. And of course people laughed at me. Dream about something you can achieve. We had virtually no money. World War II was raging. But Mum said, if you really want this, you're going to have to work really hard, take advantage of opportunity, but don't give up. And that's the message I've taken around the world to young people, particularly girls, and particularly in disadvantaged communities. And I just wish Mum was alive to know how many people have said, I want to thank you, Jane, because you've taught me, because you did it, I can do it too. Well, as you all know, my dream did come true through a lot of hard work and luck. And it was in 1960 that I was able to start, with the sanction of Dr. Louis Leakey, the research at Gombe Stream in what was then Tanganyika and is now Tanzania. Research which is today the longest unbroken study of any wild animal in the world. And so we still have a team working at Gombe, even though I'm not there. It was very quickly apparent that chimpanzees are our closest living relatives, not just because of the structure of DNA and other similar biological similarities, but also because of behavior. Kissing, embracing, holding hands, patting one another on the back, begging for food with outstretched hand, swaggering, males competing for dominance, reminding me a lot of some human politicians. And there's also the fact that shocked me at the time, that they can actually show very brutal, violent behavior. They even have a kind of primitive war. But they also show love, compassion, and true altruism. And they use and make tools. And in fact, in different parts of Africa, there are different cultures, as the young ones learn by observing the adults, imitating and practicing, so that it becomes part of the behavior of the group. So the happiest days of my life were when I was out there studying the chimpanzees, spending hours out in the rainforest, learning about the interconnectedness of all living things. And so why did I leave? I could still be there. And I think maybe some of you saw the latest Geographic documentary, Jane, and that was film taken in the early 60s by my late husband, Hugo van Lauwijk, sent out by the National Geographic. And it was that footage that forced scientists to accept the observations I was making. Because at first they said, well, she's just a girl, she hasn't been to college, why should we believe her? And I hadn't been to college at that time. But when they saw Hugo's footage, they had to believe. And then, of course, Leakey made me go to Cambridge, and even though I didn't have a first degree, he got me a place to do a PhD in ethology. I didn't even know what ethology was. No Google in those days. And by the way, no television when I was growing up. It was books that I learned from. So I got my degree, even though I was told when I first arrived that I'd done everything wrong. Chimps should have numbers, not names. That wasn't scientific. And I couldn't talk about personality, mind, or emotion, because those were unique to us. But thanks to the chimps being like us in so many ways, that has forced science out of that narrow reductionist way of thinking, and we now understand we're part of and not separated from the rest of the animal kingdom. And we're learning more and more how so many different animals are so much more intelligent than we ever used to think, not just chimps, elephants, dolphins, and so on. So as I say, why did I leave that paradise? I left because I realized that across Africa, chimpanzees and their forest habitat were disappearing. And I needed to learn more about what was happening to them. So in 1986, I got a bit of money and went to 7 different range countries to talk to the people who by then were studying chimpanzees there. I learned a lot about the problems faced by the chimpanzees, particularly habitat destruction, shooting mothers to steal babies to sell them for pets or entertainment. But I also learned about the plight of so many Africans living in and around the forested areas where the chimps and other animals live, the crippling poverty, the lack of good health and education facilities. And I realized that if we didn't help the people to find ways of living that didn't involve destroying the environment because they had to try and live. You have to cut down the last trees when you're desperate to grow food to feed your family or to make charcoal. And so that's when the Jane Goodall Institute began our program, Take Care, or Tukari, helping the local people, first of all around Gombe, and then spreading throughout Chimp Range in Tanzania, and now it's in 7 African countries. And I can tell you there are chimpanzees and forests now that wouldn't be there if we didn't work with the people. Because we're helping them, they have become partners in conservation. And I think that's the only way that we can ensure the sustainability of conservation efforts. So I was by this time traveling around the world talking about the problems faced by chimpanzees and people. And of course, I was then learning more about the problems that you referred to, that we're doing to our environment. And you all know, you're all intelligent, educated people, and you know what we're doing with our pollution. You know about all these terrible, terrible insults we're creating for poor old Mother Earth. And isn't it strange? I talked about the similarities between us and chimps, but there's a big difference, and I believe that's the explosive development of our intellect. So how bizarre that the most intellectual species, who sent a rocket up to Mars, from which crept a little robot taking photographs, we don't want to go and live on Mars, do we? We've got this one blue and green precious planet. How come the most intellectual creature on the planet is destroying its only home? And I think there's been a disconnect between this clever brain and the human heart, love and compassion. And I truly believe that only when head and heart work in harmony can we attain our true human potential. So while I'm traveling around and learning all these terrible things that we're doing, I'm meeting so many young people who seem to have lost hope. They were mostly apathetic, but they were also, some of them angry and some of them deeply depressed. And when I talked to them, they said, well, you've compromised our future and there's nothing we can do about it. The saying, we haven't inherited this planet from our parents, we borrowed it from our children, is no longer true. We have stolen their future, and we're still stealing it today. And so what I didn't accept was that there was nothing they could do about it. And that's when our youth program, Roots and Shoots, began with 12 high school students in Tanzania. We decided the main message would be every single individual matters, every single individual has some role to play, and every single individual, as you said, makes some impact every single day. And we have a choice as to what sort of impact we want to make. Not everybody has much choice. The people who are living in crippling poverty, they just have to get by somehow, and of course they destroy the environment to live, or in an urban area buy the cheapest food, because they have to. They can't afford to ask, how was it made? Did it harm the environment? Did it lead to cruelty to animals, like the intensive animal farming? Or is it cheap because of child slave labor? They have to buy the cheapest. But the roots and shoots that began with these 12 high school students, we decided right from the beginning that every group would choose for themselves. We wouldn't dictate projects to make the world better, one for people, one for animals, one for the environment. And so I think because they have the choice, and because, yes, we give them ideas and we suggest they join campaigns, but by and large they become involved because they're passionate about something, whether it's plastic or palm oil, or whether it's the treatment of dogs and cats, or whether it's any of these other problems. They enter into it with complete passion, roll up their sleeves and take action. So it's now in 60 countries, probably more by now. It's growing all the time. We have members in kindergarten, university, and everything in between. And it's my greatest reason for hope. So people are always saying to me, but Jane, do you really have hope? You've seen so much devastation of the planet. You've seen so much suffering. You know about the extinction that's already happened and is continuing to happen. How can you have hope? Well, the young people. Everywhere I go, there are shining eyes wanting to tell Dr. Jane what they're doing to make the world a better place. And then this amazing brain, we're beginning to come up with ideas, innovative technology that enable us to live in greater harmony with the planet, ways in which we can try and control our own ecological footprint day by day by day. The resilience of nature, the places that we have destroyed, that given time or perhaps some help can once again support nature. And you've got some amazing examples of that in New Zealand. I was in Zealandia a couple of days ago, which was once destroyed by gold mining and is now a beautiful forest filled with bird song. And there are many other renovation programs going on in New Zealand, and species alive today that would be gone if it wasn't for those people saying we won't let them die under our watch. Species saved from extinction and given another chance. Social media, we can bring people together from all around the world so that their voices may be heard. And the digital platform being made for Roots and Shoots in New Zealand is just one way in which this technology can help us to make the world better. And then finally, the indomitable human spirit. And that's why, you can't see at the back, but maybe if I hold him up here, that's why I carry Mr. H with me. Mr. H, named for Gary Horn, who gave him to me 29 years ago for my birthday. And Gary Horn went blind when he was 21. He decided to become a magician. Everybody said to him, Gary, you can't be a magician if you're blind. But the children don't know he's blind. And at the end he'll say to them, something may go wrong in your life, but if it does, don't give up. There's always a way forward. And he does skydiving. He does scuba diving. But I think most amazing of all, he's taught himself to paint. And in the little book that he's produced called Blind Artist, there's a portrait of Mr. H. He's never seen him. He's only felt him, and it's amazing. And so he gave him to me thinking he was giving me a stuffed chimpanzee, but if you can see at the back, he's got a tail. Gary said, never mind, take him where you go, and you know my spirit is with you. So he is my symbol of the many, many people that I have met as I travel around the globe. People who have this indomitable spirit, tackle problems that seem insoluble and somehow manage to solve them, or bring people along to continue trying to solve them after they've gone. And that's really what JGI is all about. And you know, I'll tell you something, every single person in this room has that same indomitable spirit. People don't grow it, they don't let it out. They somehow keep it suppressed within themselves. We can all accomplish the impossible if we set our mind to it, and like my mother, refuse to give up. So, as you heard, we're inaugurating a Jane Goodall Prize in New Zealand, and I'm going to ask Melanie, our CEO, to come up and tell you a little bit about it. So that's the end of, well, I'll come back after Melanie. But
prosperity of animals, people, and our shared environment. We are making 2 awards this evening. The first goes to somebody over the age of 20 years old. This recipient has been a law and philosophy student, a journalist, and a community project leader. She entered politics in 2016 when she ran for the Auckland mayoral election. You guessed. She was elected as a Green Party MP in 2017 and became the youngest MP in over 40 years. She says, "Our actions decide who is rich, who is poor, who gets sick, who gets better. They decide the quality of the air and of the water and of the land. They decide who has a future and who does not. As the Green Party in government, we have an incredible opportunity to make those decisions count for people and planet. I fought my way into Parliament to show people that politicians can look a little different, sound a little different, and do things a little different, and drive home the message that politicians work for people. I'm just another person trying to do my best to leave this planet a better place than I found it. Who better to receive this first Trailblazer Award than Chloe Swarbrick?" Under the age of 20 years old. This 16-year-old recipient is head of Paraparaumu College's Societal, Environmental and Animal Rights Action Group, Fier, which organises volunteering and projects opportunities for students. They've undertaken waste management at music festivals and are currently building a campaign around microfibres, taking part in Maui Dolphin Challenge, hosting Enviro Week with activities and so much more. She is a member of the National Organising Committee for the School Strikes for Climate. She created an after-school program, Project Katiaki, for primary school students to be mentored by older students and carry out projects to help communities environmentally. She is a project manager and designer for Paraparaumu College's robotics project to develop Seabot, a project which is about a robot that cleans the beaches, not only physically picking up the rubbish off the beaches, but educating people about ocean pollution. Our recipient is Maha Fier. Over here, Maha. Thank you.
So I think that gives you a little better idea why I have hope for the future. But it does need all of us. It does need all of us to take action. And it needs all of us to take action now. And I'm going to try a little experiment here, which I've never done in a place like this before, so it'll be a first time. But in Tanzania, where Roots and Shoots began, I was there for the anniversary of the founding, which was February 1991, it began. And I was with a group of 400 young people, high school students and university students. And they were a mixture of Muslims and Christians, because one of the things we try to do is bring together people of different nations, cultures and religions. And how badly do we need these connections today? Yes. So I was there with them, and they'd finished all talking about the projects they were doing. And then right at the end of the events, in the Roots and Shoots events in Tanzania, they were saying, together we can. In other words, together we can change the world. And I said, yes, we can, but will we? And so now at the end of the events in Tanzania, there's a shout out of together we can, together we will. And if you want to help change the world, can we try that now? Together we can, together we will. Yay, thank you.